Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. It was Winston Churchill who said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." And the individuals who've come to the Minnesota Capitol this morning are reflective of that spirit and that ethic. These are individuals who represent individuals and organizations that have their own challenges and their own struggles in these difficult economic times, and yet they found it in their hearts and in their wallets to find a way to make a very substantial contribution to their fellow citizens in need in Minnesota through Hunger Solutions and helping food shelves in Minnesota. More specifically, I'm joined this morning by Jim Merritt from the Minnesota Pork Board, Barb Overly from the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, Pat Luneman from Minnesota Milk Producers, Colleen Moriarty, for the Executive Director of Hunger Solutions, and of course Gene Hugeson, the Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture in Minnesota. We're here today to announce a donation by these groups of more than $115,000 in dairy and pork products to Hunger Solutions in Minnesota. The donation is made through the Minnesota Farmers Helping Families umbrella organization. It's a coalition of state agriculture commodity groups. There are representatives from each of the groups I just mentioned that donated 85,000 pounds of pork and more than 36,000 pounds of cheese. And so I'm here to say thank you on behalf of our state and our citizens to these generous and kind leaders who are giving this significant amount of food and help to the food shelves and to citizens across Minnesota. The high quality and nutritious food that they're donating is going to be delivered to 6 Feeding America food banks that will then distribute it to local food shelves for distributions to thousands of low-income residents across Minnesota. As you know, at these challenging economic times, we've seen a significant increase in food shelf use in Minnesota. As we approach the holidays, we often see an uptick in giving around the holidays by companies and individuals, and that's certainly appreciated. We hope that will occur again as we get closer to the holiday season this year. But this early donation prior to the holidays will help infuse an amount that will kind of steady the supply even before the holidays, before that larger infusion comes in. This is also reflective of Minnesota goodness and kindness. We're a great state for lots of different reasons, but one of the reasons we're a great state is we've got really good and kind people. Minnesotans volunteer at rates at levels amongst the highest in the nation. Their total hours of service as volunteers are enormous. We're one of the most generous states in terms of charitable giving on a per capita basis in the country. And of course, our ag community have been just consistent and persistent leaders in this regard. When we've been struck by flooding or droughts or disease outbreaks or price fluctuations, through it all, our farmers and our ag producers and groups in Minnesota have been steady, forward-leaning partners. They've been through their own challenge, like I said, this past 12 months in terms of weather conditions and some downturn in price, although we did get some very good news recently with China announcing, I think just yesterday, that they're reopening their market to American pork. And the swine producers across our country, I think, will be greatly relieved by that news, because that was one of the things that was depressing pork prices globally and certainly hurting our hog industry in Minnesota. But even in the face of these hardships and others, these groups have stepped forward and said, we're here and willing to help our fellow citizens. And so we're grateful for that.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Commissioner Hugeson, for your commitment to our industry. Minnesota pork producers are part of a progressive and innovative industry. Minnesota pork producers are nationally recognized for adopting science-based technologies to better feed, shelter, and care for our pigs. The industry supports 22,500 jobs in Minnesota. These jobs include services for hog management and care, accountants, nutritionists, agronomists, meat processing, construction, related building fields, trucking, and of course feed mill operations. It's been a rough few years for us pork producers. In the past 2 years, high feed costs, the downward spiral of the economy, and the initial misperceptions from H1N1 have translated to a staggering $5+ billion loss for the pork industry. Pork producers have lost 66% of their equity, but we will survive. And we stand together to help those less fortunate who depend on organizations like Hunger Solutions and the important work that they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, but mainly thank you for your continual support of the ag community. It's been extremely appreciated, and also Commissioner Hugeson, on your behalf too, your efforts behind all of our the things that we do. With this economic slowdown across the state, it's not only in the big cities, it's also in the rural area. And so we, as Minnesota soybean producers, we felt this was a good time to step up to the plate. Everyone says, but the donation does not include beans. Well, no, but virtually all the soybean meal that is raised in Minnesota is used for animal feed. And so by supporting this effort, we're supporting the pork producers and the dairy, the people who are using our meal, and also we're helping our neighbors who are in need of food. The food shelves, as you all know, are down at the, and with the holidays coming up, they can use this extra boost. This donation is equivalent to about 350,000 portions. So you just think of the number of people that can be fed with that. We're doing this as kind of a jump start. We also want to get everybody else involved. We don't want it to stop right here. We're hoping that the message will get out and other people will get on board and make donations. And it's a very easy thing to do. All you need to go is to the website, and it's mnfarmershelpingfamilies.com, and you can give your donation, and it will buy more pork and more cheese to help out the food shelves. Thank you.
Minnesota Farmers Helping Families is completely funded by Minnesota Farm Families. All Minnesota pork, dairy, and soybean producers contribute to a checkoff program which funds research and marketing efforts at home and around the globe, helping drive demand for U.S. ag products. Minnesota's dairy farmers work hard to produce a wholesome quality product for consumers worldwide while providing special care for their animals and stewardship of our natural resources. Minnesota's multi-billion-dollar dairy industry is one of the state's largest agricultural sectors, but is suffering as prices have collapsed. About 200 Minnesota dairy farms have closed in the past year, according to state figures, leaving 4,660 still operating. It's been a tough year for Minnesotans, all the way from the farmer who cares for their cows to the consumers in the grocery stores who buy our products. But we're committed to coming together and working to help those in need. Thank you.
Since 2000, there's been a 90% increase in visits to Minnesota food shelves. It really was no surprise to me that the farmers were stepping up to help those in their community because they are the backbone of this state and of the agriculture system in our nation. They have always been there for people in need and will continue to be, and I am honored to be able to accept this donation. The first truck has already arrived at Second Harvest Heartland with enough cheese to feed about 100,000 families. This is a welcome relief to those in need in our state. We assure you that all of the donation will be distributed with equity to people in need throughout the state of Minnesota through the Feeding America food banks. And on behalf of your neighbors, or maybe even yourself, I want to accept this donation and urge you to even give more in this time and throughout the year. Thank you very much.
We've seen a dramatic price problem for the pork farmers as well as the dairy farmers. Dairy farmers this year have received prices half of what they were a year ago. The pork farmers have experienced some very difficult times because of some of the feed costs, certainly some of the export problems that have developed from H1N1 issue that has really been an exacerbation to the system that they are trying to maintain in this state. But it is very typical with rural culture. When people are in need, people drop their own efforts and rally around those folks that have a special need. And I think what you're seeing here today is a great example of that, where Minnesota farm families are literally putting aside some of their own cares, some of their own problems, and cooperating to help those that have special needs. And certainly it helps their situation as well, because as you've heard mentioned, the Minnesota Soybean Research Promotion Council has taken some of the checkoff dollars that farmers themselves contribute to this effort, and money which is normally used to market these products oftentimes in other parts of the world is now being used to purchase some of the surplus commodities that we have here in Minnesota, be it cheese and pork, and then distribute that through the Hunger Organization to meet the needs of those families in Minnesota that are facing the problem of not having enough to eat because of not having a job, for instance.